Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Malice in the Mitten. I am your host, Tracy Preston, along with my bestie, Christine Mulligan. Hey, Christine.
Hey, Trace. Hey, everybody. Glad to see you back for another Malice in the Mitten.
So glad to have everyone back. But, Christine, I know you can't stand it when I talk about bad things that happen to children, and it's not like I enjoy talking about it because I absolutely don't. I find what grown-ass adults do to innocent children to be extremely horrifying. It puts a knot in my stomach, and a rageful anger wells up from the depths of my soul. Today's story is going to be extremely difficult, not only for you to hear, Christine, but if we don't talk about this, how can others learn what the signs of child abuse are and understand that it is all of our responsibilities to protect these children, especially in the school system, the medical profession, of which we all receive training on what to do, as well as just normal, everyday neighbors.
Ugh, Trace, I know. I hate hearing about the kids, and I give you crap about it, but just like everything else we talk about, it's good for us to talk about it and know about what happened. Of course, with everything else, knowledge is power, and hopefully the more people know about these horrific things, the more people will be on edge and aware of things around them, so they pay attention so things like this don't happen. Not to say, oh geez, I just stepped in it. Not to say that as long as we know about it, we'll pay more attention as if we're not. But you know what I mean. So go ahead and tell me this horrible story. So what's happening now?
All right, so here comes the warning. If hearing about child neglect, abuse, and murder is too difficult for you, please stop listening now. This story is a tough one to hear. I will give a 3-second delay before I get to the story. 3, 2, 1. This is Season 2, Episode 10, Ricky Holland. The little boy that I am talking to you about today is named Richard Paul Holland, but everyone called him Ricky. Ricky was born to a 16-year-old girl on September 8th, 1997, in Chula Vista, San Diego County, California. Ricky's mother had given him up for adoption along with his 2 younger siblings. Ricky was just 3 years old when Lisa and Tim Holland became his parents. In just 4 years, Ricky would succumb to the injuries inflicted on him by Lisa. It was July 2nd, 2005, when 37-year-old Tim Holland, the adopted father of 7-year-old Ricky, called 911 to report his little boy missing. Both Tim and his wife Lisa were pleading with the community of Williamston, Michigan to help find their son. They both said their son got out of the home through a window and they couldn't find him anywhere. Tim said, quote, "If anybody sees him, please tell the sheriff's department. I feel like I have nothing left to give. All I have left is hope and prayer." It was a blazing hot 4th of July weekend when, quote, "police both on and off duty, as well as firefighters, men, women, teenagers, senior citizens, police dogs, dive teams, mounted units, and helicopters were searching tirelessly in hopes of finding the missing boy. Local businesses and organizations donated food and water, and because there were so many people searching, the Red Cross set up tents to feed everyone. Now, there were approximately 1,700 people in the community and agencies looking for this little guy. As the search continued, people were starting to feel that neither Tim nor Lisa were acting like most parents would act if they had a missing child. To everyone that was looking for the boy, something just didn't feel right or seem right, especially to the Hollands' neighbors, Jim and Jackie Wheeler. Now, believe it or not, Christine, both Jim and Jackie worked for the Ingham County Sheriff's Office.
So they were their neighbors?
Yeah, right next door.
Jesus.
Jim was a sergeant and Jackie was a detective. Soon investigators turned their focus toward the adoptive parents, and they had asked Jim and Jackie to pay the Hollands a visit and to see if their suspicions were on point. So that's exactly what the two of them did. And during a visit at the Holland household, Jim noticed that Tim was limping, and when questioned about it, Tim said that he hurt his ankle when he was looking for his son near the Red Cedar River. On a second visit with the Hollands, Jim noticed that the limp was still present while the Wheelers were there. They heard Lisa practically screaming at Tim to get the kids ready so that they could all go out to breakfast.
Wait, so they had other kids?
Yeah, so there were 2 younger siblings when they all adopted Ricky and his younger siblings. Now, Ricky was just 3 years old. So I can only imagine, right, that the other 2 were at least 2 or 1 and a baby. It never said what their ages were, but with Ricky being 3 and, the time it takes to be pregnant, I can only imagine they were just really little children.
Okay.
Now, apparently, the Wheelers had some small animals over at their home, and I don't know what they were. I don't know if they had bunnies or what was going on, but it sounded like they had a little batch of small animals at their house. Again, as I mentioned, they lived right next door to the Hollands. And while they were there, Lisa said to Jackie, quote, "When this is all over, we'd like to bring the rest of the kids over to see your animals. That would really be fun for them." So nonchalantly, like this whole thing with her missing son was nothing more than just another day. The Wheelers also saw the Holland family hold a graveside service for their dog, which had passed away. The whole family stood there and gave a proper burial for their pet, and this just did not sit well with the Wheelers. Jim had told the investigating team, quote, "And right then I said, that's not a mother of a missing child." He also told detectives they needed to take a hard look at what type of trash bags the Holland used because, quote, "that was my feeling 15 minutes after we got there, that he," meaning Ricky, "went out of the house in a trash bag." There were more stories that were starting to emerge from other neighbors of the Hollands as well. For example, they would find Ricky in their home, in their kitchens, looking in the refrigerator and eating their food. When the little boy was asked what he was doing, Ricky would beg them not to tell his mother. From what Jackie could surmise from all this, it wasn't that Ricky didn't want his mother to know that he was in someone's home where he shouldn't be. He didn't want Lisa to know that he was eating. Ricky had made the comment that, quote, "my mom doesn't feed me. I don't think she loves me very much."
Wait a minute. So neighbors, okay, so neighbors were seeing this little boy who was, I'm guessing, a little emaciated if he wasn't eating at home and foraging for food in neighbors' houses, and they never thought to check in.
Yeah, that's what I'm telling you. Because it wasn't just one neighbor. He got into a handful of houses. He was starving. You know what I mean? This little boy was trying to survive.
It makes me think of, how we always like to stay out of other people's business to some extent, and then if you have somebody that's too in somebody's business, we call them a Karen or something like that because they're too into questioning what's happening in other people's houses. But at the same time, there's like this other side where we as a society know that family matters are family matters and we keep them. But there's got to be some there's a line in between somewhere, where you got to speak up when things are just not right. So nobody's ever spoken up before this kid went missing. And then after he goes missing, everybody's like, oh, yeah, well, he was always acting weird and foraging in our house. And we never said anything to anyone.
Yeah. And we talked about this before, where don't get in the middle of that marriage. Don't poke your nose in that. Stay away from that. But...
Yeah. When it comes to kids, I feel like people should be a little bit more nosy sometimes.
Absolutely, because we have to protect children as a community. I will tell you right now, if I found some little boy in my home just to eat, you can bet your sweet ass that I would be calling Child Protective Services. If I'm wrong, cool, I'm wrong. But how could this not be a serious red flag? Something's going on and this little boy needs help.
Yeah.
I can't wrap my head around it. It gets worse.
I know, but at the same time, I don't know. If I was immediately trying to put myself in those shoes. I don't know. I think I obviously would have spoken to his parents. Maybe I probably would have not told like he wanted me to tell, but I would have said something like, oh, do you mind if I whatever? And then see how she reacted. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. Of course, this is all, Monday morning quarterbacking.
Right.
So.
Right.
It's hard to say, but okay, go on. I'm stumbling over the fact that now you're telling me stories that all the neighbors are talking about how they noticed something was wrong before they knew something was wrong. Do you know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a Monday morning cornerback situation all around, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead.
All right, so soon the Michigan State Police and other surrounding agencies were all working together. The Hollands were under serious surveillance. When speaking with some of Ricky's teachers, they learned that Lisa would pack Ricky only a sandwich for lunch, but that sandwich consisted of 2 pieces of bread with a few carrot sticks in it. Ricky told his teachers that he didn't even like carrots. After hearing this, one of the detectives said, quote, "It seemed like food was being withheld as either torture or punishment." As the investigation continued, Tim and Lisa were starting to feel the pressure of suspicion tightening around them. It was on January 27th, 2006, 6 months after Tim called 911 to report his son missing, that he confessed to police and led them to Ricky's body. Just as Jim Wheeler suspected, Ricky was found in a trash bag, only 10.3 miles away from his home in Danville, Michigan, near a swamp. It was February 7th, 2006, when both Lisa and Tim were officially charged for the murder of their 7-year-old son, Ricky. Tim testified against his wife at her trial, and the horrifying details of what this little boy endured at the hands of this piece of shit Lisa makes me so angry and absolutely disgusted. Not only was Lisa abusing this little boy, but Tim also did nothing to protect him, and he had plenty of opportunities. The following information comes from law.justia.com, People of Michigan versus Lisa Gale Holland, where I found a 17-page public document from the State of Michigan Court of Appeals. During the trial, there were 2 employees that testified from the Department of Human Services. Prior to Ricky's death, the Hollands were receiving subsidy payments from the state of Michigan in the amount of $450. This amount was above the standard rate because Ricky had, quote, special needs. Now, when Ricky and his siblings were adopted in 2000, the Hollands were living in Jackson, Michigan. Lisa had enrolled Ricky in a Head Start program for children with special needs. Lisa had told Ricky's teacher that he was a defiant boy at home, but when he was at school, his teacher only saw a well-behaved child. His teacher felt that Ricky's mother was exaggerating the issues with her son to receive the additional money she was receiving from the state. Also because of Lisa's exaggeration, Ricky was seeing a psychotherapist once a week. But just like his teachers, the psychotherapist only saw normal behaviors with this little boy. On one of Ricky's sessions, the therapist noted a deep rope burn on his wrist. When asked, Ricky acknowledged what the therapist saw and said it was from the rope they had tied him in bed with at night. Not only, Christine, at this point, do we have the shit going on with the neighbors and him breaking in, getting food, you now have a medical physician. What is the word I want?
A medical professional
Thank
doing
you.
a damn thing about this.
Yeah.
What in the actual hell is going on? Because that is definitively one of the things that, as a medical professional, we are duty bound to report. So what went wrong there?
God only knows. Nothing.
And what's with this physician now? I mean, do they still have a license? Because they shouldn't.
I hope they don't, but I have no idea. It should be revoked immediately. You're psychoanalyzing children. Children! Oh, God. Okay.
It should have been, and especially if their findings of the child were normal. But this child is still coming to them on a weekly basis.
Mm-hmm.
There is never a time where you decide to kick the can up the chain of command and have these parents investigated.
Right. Now you should...
Are these questions? I don't understand. You made me mad now.
I know.
I made me mad. I feel like at every turn, this kid was failed.
Yep. He absolutely was. And not only do you, right, let's just say this psychotherapist has an inkling that, something could be wrong here, but you're actually looking at physical marks and a little boy saying, oh yeah, they tied me with a rope to bed at night. Unreal.
No, right then and there, it shouldn't have been an immediate kind of action.
Yeah, like this boy's not going home.
Should have gotten involved immediately as soon as that kid said that he was tied in bed with a rope.
Yep.
And he had physical marks.
Yeah, yep.
Even if it was a story, some kind of investigation should have happened.
Absolutely. CPS should have been contacted immediately.
Absolutely. Yep. Okay, so go ahead with this harm story.
All right. So when Ricky started kindergarten, Lisa had requested that Ricky needed to ride the bus for special education children, and she would put him on the bus with a harness and leash, like a fucking dog. Lisa made it clear that he was, quote, a problem child, and she wanted written reports of his bad behavior from the school. But his bus drivers and teachers never saw any type of behavior like that from Ricky. They would remove the harness from him once he was on the bus. All of his teachers and bus driver ever saw was a sweet little boy at school, and they would refuse to put the harness back on him. This type of behavior from Lisa continued throughout kindergarten and first grade as well. The food Lisa continued to send for Ricky remained the same: 2 slices of bread with carrot sticks. At school, it wasn't uncommon to catch Ricky stealing food throughout the week. The school nurse testified at Lisa's hearing that she had found, quote, nickel-sized bruises on Ricky's chest. When she spoke to Ricky's mother about the bruises, Lisa would say that it was from the harness that was causing these bruises. But when the nurse spoke with the transportation driver, she found out that he hadn't been wearing his harness. So now we have a nurse involved doing nothing. Again.
Especially a school nurse. Like, that's one of, as a nurse, okay, let's just put this out there, because maybe not everybody knows. As a nurse, and I'm pretty sure it's every state, but I know for certain, I mean, I have a license that I can work in every state. I have to do continuing education every 2 years, actually. It's yearly. We're supposed to do it yearly, but every 2 years it gets quantified and qualified whether or not I've done that continuing education to get my license, to renew my license, my nursing license every time I do that. One of the things that we have to continually educate on is abuse. And within that education, we are repeatedly told what to look for, what are the signs and symptoms of certain things, and what are the socio-mechanicals of things, and how to report and when to report and what happens if we don't report. Like, these are things that are pounded into our heads, but we have to relearn them all the time consistently in order to keep our medical licenses. So for the viewers out there that don't know that, this is where some of my frustration is coming from. So not only do we have a physician involved in the abuse of this child, but now we have the school nurse involved in the abuse of this child, and no one has done a thing. And the thing is I know that I would get kickback. Like, if we were on a forum and there were all other medical professionals on this forum with me, they would tell me, oh, well, this is common and we see this all the time and blah, blah, blah. But that's the thing. That's the thing that makes me irate, is we shouldn't be seeing this all the time. We should be doing better. Society should be doing better. We shouldn't have indigent or starving Americans out there anywhere. Like, there's way too much money in this world for so many people to be pathetically poor and not feeding their children and abusive. And I know I'm going down a whole nother rabbit hole, but I'm already giving these people reasons for why they're so horrible, because society makes it rough on them. But at the same time, it takes a village. We need to get back to that as society. It takes a village to raise children. And we need to do better. We need to be better. And oh my God, you've gotten me all riled up and we haven't even gotten into the thick of the story. I'm going to dial back and shut up and let you finish telling me, because I'm just getting madder and madder.
I know it. It's just this poor boy. It was just, everyone failed this child. Everyone. So Lisa continued to speak poorly of her son, but the school psychologist and social worker could not find any reason that Ricky needed to be in special education classes, and therefore the recommendation was not made. It wasn't long before Lisa pulled Ricky out of the school, period. Lisa had also taken Ricky to see a neuropsychologist and wanted an assessment performed, as she said, quote, he was defiant, hyperactive, and distracted. But what the neuropsychologist found was that Ricky was pleasant, cooperative, and intelligent. However, with all that being said, this is going to make you crazy, Christine, Ricky was still diagnosed with, quote, disruptive behavior disorder, but it was not recommended that he be placed on any medication. So now we have another physician involved in the lack of doing their due diligence to protect this child.
And the more you get into this woman really just wanted money. So this child was a paycheck, which I know I've said it a million times. although I agree we need our penal system and our law system, of course we need it, how broken it is because of how it functions in the long run. But here we go again. Now we're not talking about the penal system. Now we're talking about the child protective system and the, I don't know, what do we call that? Child's welfare systems. This woman adopted these children. She adopted them so she can make money. This is her hustle. This is her side hustle, or be it her full-time job, is to adopt children and get paychecks from child welfare of the state. This is her doing a really, really, really bad job. And the fact that this child is not a child in her eyes, it is a paycheck.
Exactly.
And nobody is seeing this at all. All of these people around this child are not taking notice that she is treating him like an animal. She's treating him like an animal, even right down to the harness, which I get. Some parents do use those harnesses, and I know how some of us feel when they go to parks and if they go shopping. And I have 3 kids myself, and my middle guy was a runner. And what I mean by he was a runner is as soon as we get into stores, he would, go in between, those round racks of clothes. That was his favorite thing to do, was go in the center of those round racks of clothes and wait for me to scream for him when I noticed he was gone. Meanwhile, he'd be 2 feet from me, but I get it. And I used to always joke that I was going to get a leash for him. Telling that story, I'm saying I get the need for some parents because some kids, they're runners, you know what I mean? And you want to make sure that you don't lose them. So I'm not admonishing the use of the leash and harness too much. What I'm admonishing is that she was talking her way into making others believe that this child was a problem child. Even though they were witnessing the opposite, they still went along with it. I'm assuming under the guise of, you never know what happens at home. You got to believe her. So forget about believing the kid when he's literally telling people around him that his mother only feeds him carrots. He doesn't like carrots. He's stealing other kids' food. Like, just the stealing of the food alone, like, why wasn't that a bigger issue?
Yeah, that's a huge flag, right?
Yeah.
And you've got to, and especially in the school system, like, it doesn't take a genius to look at a child and see that they're thin and they're starving. And when you're comparing what you see in that little child compared to other kids his age, you don't think that that's a problem? How many other kids are stealing food? Yeah.
Okay.
So Lisa was not satisfied with just getting diagnoses. She needed him on medication. So guess what she did? She took him to another physician that Lisa took him to. Ricky was then diagnosed with, get ready for this litany of diagnoses. Ricky was diagnosed with deficit hyperactivity disorder, also called ADHD, oppositional defiant disorder, ODD, bipolar disorder, and impulsive control disorder. Now, these diagnoses were all made as the physician mostly relied on Lisa's description of Ricky's behaviors at home. Like, are you kidding me right now? One thing this idiot doctor did take note of was that Ricky was not growing like he should for his age. Ricky went from an average weight for his age to being in the 10th percentile.
And does this physician still have their license? And they probably do. And that makes me angry. And that makes me so angry. That makes me more angry than this woman being a low-life abuser. It makes me angry because these physicians are making a lot of money because they're supposed to take care of people. Right. And it's completely failing.
And their patient population is children. The patient population that these doctors care for are children.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's great.
It's disgusting. He failed, you failed, everybody failed. Failed. Well, it wasn't long before the Hollands left Jackson and then moved to Williamston. Now, if anyone listening thinks that this woman is seeking attention from the medical field for something called Munchausen by proxy, I'm going to tell you she's not. When women do this, when they are diagnosed with Munchausen by proxy, when women do this, they are abusing their children. And yes, Lisa was abusing her son physically and mentally, but the hallmark of Munchausen by proxy is running the children for help, taking them to the emergency room, taking the children to multiple emergency rooms for help so that people don't catch on. Women who do this are looking for attention and, most of all, sympathy. This is not what is happening here. The motive is not sympathy. And just like Christine said, the motive is money. Lisa wants to assure that she continues to receive money from the state of Michigan. She takes that extra money for herself, as she loved to get her toes and her nails did. All that money from the state went to her selfish expenditures, not caring for her child. That was never in the equation, not once.
And my brain automatically goes to, you've already said she still has other children at home. So what is she doing to them? Or was Ricky just happy?
Yeah, Ricky just seemed to be her target, because that's what was going through my mind. And all the documents that I read, I never saw any further discussion about these children. Now, it sounds like they weren't on her target list at this point, but they were little. Well, at this point, they're probably about, I don't know, maybe 4, 5, 6, 7, because they were just still little. And who knows, maybe once she got away with whatever she was doing with this little boy, maybe once the other children got a little bit bigger, then they were her next target. I just don't know. I can only make those inferences. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but thankfully, not that you got there yet, but I'm gonna preemptively say, thankfully, she's now in jail, and those other kids are being taken care of by someone else.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, they had to, Ben.
I don't want too far ahead, but okay, let's go.
Yeah.
Finish telling me, because I'm so angry with this call. I don't even know. I'm so angry with this story. I don't even know. I'm beside myself right now.
Yeah.
And it's not so much of the horror and the abuse of this child. Of course, I'm angry at that. And I actually, I'm appreciating right now how we started this conversation, and you started, with the warning about the kid, and this was going to be rough for that. But I am completely taken for a loop in the anger I feel for the failures of everyone else around them before this atrocity even happened.
Yeah.
And you haven't even gotten to the atrocity yet.
No,
Are you?
It's coming.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So now, as you mentioned, I haven't even talked about what she's done to him physically. And this is where the deepest of the dark will be talked about. I have children, and as a mother, I will tell you that I want to rip this woman to shreds just like you do. I want to do to her what she did to a small boy who was powerless against her. I want to fight for him. But for Ricky, it's too late. So with a heavy heart, I will now tell you what Tim Holland told the court during Lisa's trial. Tim said, quote, Lisa had an immense hatred for Ricky. She frequently backhanded and struck him in the head and back with a heavy wooden spoon. On numerous occasions, I would arrive home from work and find Ricky locked in his bedroom or in the basement with his hands, feet, and mouth duct taped and standing in a pool of urine. Ricky had knocked something over while running through the house. Lisa picked up a tack hammer and threw it at his head. She hit her target. She then picked the tack hammer back up and hit him in the head again. Now, I had to look up a tack hammer. I mean, I had an idea of what it looked like, but I had to look it up. So a tack hammer has the regular full-length wooden handle like a hammer, but it's like something that maybe people would use to install those carpet tacks on the floor, for carpeting. So it's a smaller, it doesn't look just like a hammer, but it kind of looks like, thick on one side and a little more pointed on the other.
Yeah, the best way to describe a tack hammer for people that have no clue about hammers, everybody knows what a regular hammer looks like, and everybody knows what an ice pick looks like. So a tack hammer is like if a regular hammer and an ice pick had a baby.
Exactly. So on one occasion, Tim picked up the tack hammer to do something with it, and Lisa said he couldn't take it because that's what she uses on Ricky. Now, I want you all to remember that in the beginning of the story, I told you that Tim called 911 on July 2nd, 2005, to report Ricky missing. During the trial, Tim said, quote, when I returned home on Friday, June 24th, I found Ricky in the living room with a crusty laceration on the right side of his head. Ricky wore only a diaper. He was dirty, smelly, had difficulty walking, and did not even acknowledge I had entered the house. Later that day, now, can we just pause for 1 minute? Later that day? Are you serious right now? Tim finally had the balls to ask his wife, Lisa, about the laceration on Ricky's head. Her answer, quote, Ricky hit his head in the kiddie pool. But guess what? Big surprise here. What kiddie pool? Where was it? Because it was not to be seen. Well, I guess her explanation was enough to satisfy the shell of a man, because a few more days had passed and no further discussion, no action, no putting this boy into a vehicle and getting him to the ER as fast as you can drive. Nope. Instead, Tim did nothing. Well, he did do something, I guess. He just watched Ricky's condition and physical state deteriorate. Ricky did not eat and did not drink. Now, whether Tim or Lisa attempted to help him eat or drink, I have no idea. But my guess is they didn't. But there was something that Tim did do for his son. He at least changed his 7-year-old son's diaper.
I was going to ask you, I mean, you are on a roll, but he's 7 years old. All he was wearing was a diaper. Why is he wearing a diaper?
It's punishment, I guess. No clothes, just a diaper. Go ahead and pee and poop.
No?
Was he what?
Was he tied up? Was he moving? I'm confused. Was he just sitting there in the living room with a diaper on for days? Not moving, not eating, not drinking?
Yeah. And my assumption is that he was just on the floor. It doesn't say, but this little boy was just laying there and they did nothing. All right. So it is now Friday, July 1, 2005. Ricky was no longer speaking. He was incapable of knowing Tim was there. And now Ricky was becoming a little more stiff and cold. But like a good dad, Tim picked Ricky up, and now I'm assuming, just like I just mentioned, he was on the floor all this time, as I just can't imagine Lisa would allow this boy to be on the furniture. Again, purely speculation on my part, but that is how I see it. Tim put Ricky to bed and left. Yeah, you heard that correctly. Tim left the house. When Tim returned, he must have been concerned a little bit because he actually went to check on Ricky. Well, Tim found Ricky where he left him. He was in a fetal position, red liquid on the bedding and on his face. He was much colder and pulseless. Now, I don't know if Lisa followed Tim into the bedroom or if they talked in the bedroom or wherever, but at some point, Lisa exclaimed that she didn't do it and then proceeded to tell Tim that he had to get Ricky out of the house. So, like a spineless puppet, Tim did exactly that. Tim put his son into a garbage bag, placed him into a vehicle, drove him 10.3 miles away from their home, and dumped Ricky like a piece of garbage in the swamp. The next day, Tim called 911 to report his son was missing.
I have nothing to say. It's like I have nothing to say. So, in other words, she gave him a lobotomy with that tack hammer.
Yep, pretty much.
God.
Timothy Paul Holland is serving 30 to 60 years at the Oaks Correctional Facility. He was found guilty of homicide, murder in the second degree. His earliest release date is 2036, with a maximum discharge date of January 25th, 2066. Lisa Gail Holland is a lifer, period. She was found guilty of homicide, felony murder. She will die in prison at the Huron Valley Women's Complex. I would just like to talk about the many, many ways, just like Christine and I have said throughout this entire podcast, that this little boy was failed by every adult involved in his life. Teachers, bus drivers, neighbors, the school nurse, and more than one physician. I just can't even understand it. Why did no one even make a phone call? If you suspect someone is abusing a child, please make a call to help and possibly save the life of that child. In Michigan, to state report child abuse and neglect, call toll-free 855-444-3911. I'm going to repeat that number. 855-444-3911. Or go to childwelfare.gov and search your state for a number to call. There is also a national hotline called Childhelp, National Child Abuse and Hotline. You can call or text 800-422-4453. Again, that number is 800-422-4453. Thank you for listening. I know it was rough.
Oh my God. And thank you for those numbers because everybody should know them. And you can call anonymously and give information. And I know nobody wants to be, what we reference to today as a Karen, nobody wants to be a busybody. Nobody wants to overstep. But when it comes to children, I kind of feel like there is no overstepping. Even if you're wrong, at least somebody has eyes on the same thing that you have seen. If you have a kid that comes to your house and is foraging through your food, please get involved. If you have a kid in your classrooms that you notice issues, please just report them. Even if you're wrong. So you're wrong and you get labeled as a busybody. But there's going to be times where you're right. And I kind of feel like those times when you're right, or those times when people call and they are correct, and even if it just seems very traumatic and dramatic and there's gossipy stories here and there, for all of the people that have done that and that have been made out to be the bad guy because they've ratted somebody out for something, pat yourselves on the back because you might have saved a life.
Exactly. And like we said, and like you mentioned, Christine, these calls can be anonymous. And at least someone making a call will put this family on the radar, because if they had a little surprise visit and they want to see this boy, maybe they're going to find him in the basement, duct taped.
Yeah.
Standing in their own urine and probably feces, and God only knows what else they're going to find. You can't keep CPS out of your home when there's an investigation.
Ugh.
So, horrible, horrible story. But again, we need awareness. It takes a village. And that's what we need to do. Open your eyes, follow your gut, and make a call if you see it.
Yeah. See something, say something. I know it's so cliche, and a lot of people make fun of that saying, but it holds so true. See something, say something. Because it takes a village. And we as society, we got to get better. We got to get better at caring for one another. And stop worrying about money so damn much. Oh my God, this story kind of folds into all of my hot spots. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I know that my opinions are not popular opinions, that, especially as Americans, we're proud to be Americans and all of that. We're not so proud for a lot of things that happen, but all in all, I think all Americans are proud to be Americans, whether or not we subscribe to the fact that we're the best at anything, because we're really not. But we should definitely be better at securing our children. I mean,
protecting.
It takes a village. We need to be better.
Yep.
Be better, people, be better.
Absolutely. So with this heartbreaking story finally coming to a close, I want to thank all of you who listened to this story, as hard as it was. I hope you noted those numbers, and please call should you suspect anything. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for sticking out this episode with us. We look forward to seeing you back on Wednesday for our round robin. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.
Bye.